All right, everybody, welcome to the inaugural episode of the Pitch Out. I am Dan Siegel. That young man right there is Nik Jarvinen. As you can see, well, Nick's wearing his hat the proper way, so you can see that he is a Tiger fan. I'm rocking it backwards. Griffey was the guy when I grew up, so he rocked it backwards. I can rock it backwards.
I got a Griffey bobblehead a couple feet from me, so I'm with you on that.
There you go.
So
So I am a Met fan. Nick is the Tiger fan. So our bias is out of the way. So if anybody wants to comment or tweet at us about bias, we're just getting that out of the way early. But like I said, this is the inaugural episode of the Pitch Out. Obviously, this is a baseball show. We'll cover everything. Rumors, signings, trades, all that good stuff. So let's hop right into it. And Nick, the hot stove hasn't necessarily been real hot, but the NL East is generating all the steam that you can get from it thus far. Everybody has made moves. The Mets started it with the trade for Cano. They just signed Wilson Ramos. The Nats signed Patrick Corbin, which I'm not sure a whole lot of people saw coming. Phillies made the move for Segura. The Braves even signed Josh Donaldson. NL East is the Wild West so far. I found it interesting that at the Wilson Ramos press conference today, Brody Van Wagenen, who's the Mets' new GM, said internally they can talk to themselves as if they are now the best team in the NL East. I don't know if I necessarily go that far, even as a Mets fan, but, maybe I'm a little too close to the situation, so we'll ask you, what are your views of the NL East so far here?
Well, I'll start off with the Mets, like you brought them up, as a Mets fan first, and they've obviously been the most busy team. It's interesting because I feel like Brody is pushing the limits of the Wilpons a little bit, because usually they don't spend a lot of money. And the Wilson Ramos deal, in my opinion, was a steal because Ramos is worth a lot more than he got. I got to watch him hit with the Rays a lot these last few years because obviously I'm American League City. He's the real deal. He got I saw a tweet yesterday actually. He got LASIK surgery after the 2015 season. And ever since then, he's really lived up to his potential. So I really like that move under the radar. And then the Cano deal, obviously it brings him the veteran presence bat, and obviously Diaz was the main get in that deal. Diaz is a fireballer. He's under team control. Obviously, there's a lot of good free agents out there, like Kimbrel and everybody, but they didn't have to spend the money. And really, they're going for it. So those prospects, they kept Pete Alonso, who can help them this year. They kept Andres Jimenez, who is their number one prospect by most. Baseball America has him as the number one. MLB.com has him as the number one. So they're able to keep their best prospect, which is good. I just think they improved the most by any of the teams in this division. Obviously, if they could go out and get like Harper or something, that would totally put them in the front. But right now, I'm actually looking at the Nationals as the front runner, which may surprise people because obviously last year was their last year with Bryce Harper. He had a great, that was kind of the window. He had that great MVP season, then he kind of fell off, and then he came back the next year, and then last year he had a good year again. But people viewed that as their window. The thing is, with Harper leaving, they have Juan Soto coming up now, who had a better rookie season than Harper at the same age, 19. Not often you get to compare people that are two 19-year-olds, but Soto had a really good year. He probably should have won Rookie of the Year, but Acuna's team won the division, which we'll get to in a second. I'll get to there in a second. But Soto, and then they've got Victor Robles, who people forget about. He was hurt last year. That guy is a legit center fielder. I got to watch him play. I went to a game down in Toledo. He came through AAA last year. He's a 5-tool player. His speed is really legit. He can hit. He's got some power. He's going to play center field really well, which is a big defensive upgrade. Harper was being thrown out into center field last year. I did not like that. Harper's a corner outfielder. That's just the way it is. It was not good to force him in center. And then they've got Adam Eaton still, if he can stay healthy. Adam Eaton, he was not that good of a defensive center fielder. He moved to Texas last year with the White Sox. He was great in the corner outfield. So if that works out defensively with Soto and left, Robles in center, and Eaton and right, all of them are pretty good with the bat. Two of them have immense potential top 10 prospects in all baseball we're talking about coming into last year. So, they really, really have a thing where maybe losing Harper wasn't that big of a subtraction because now they can play their outfield defense good. And they've obviously had Corbin, to go with Scherzer, who's going to be a Hall of Famer, Strasburg, who is great. He'd be an ace on almost any other team. They're the team I'm watching this year because I think they've made upgrades all around. They've upgraded catcher.
Here's the thing with the Nationals before you go on. Even when the Nationals were making the postseason, their problem was never the pitching. It was always the bats.
Yes.
Okay, so you add in another pitcher to give you that three-headed monster. We can argue who's got the best rotation in that division, whether you want to go Syndergaard, DeGrom, and, Wheeler, wherever you want to go. We can argue that. That's whatever. But you're adding to the depth, the strength that you already have while you're losing arguably your best bat. That's a lot to put on Victor Robles in his rookie year. And, Soto's coming off his first full year, 3/4 of a year. There's always the
sophomore slump.
Yeah, I always kind of expect a little bit of a drop-off. So that's a lot to put on two young kids.
That is fair. Like I said, though, the thing you could be completely right because they're young. It's hard to project young players. They're the hardest to project. You can't. When you're looking through projections at the beginning of the year, because you play fantasy, that's why I know that. The young guys, we love them. We love prospects. I know we both do. But they're the hardest to project. You don't know when they're going to break out, really. And Soto, you could argue, he pretty much kind of did break out last year. Robles still hasn't really done that because he hasn't gotten much playing time in the MLB. He's been injured in the minors and back and forth. But, yeah, you're right. There's definitely where they could be versus where they might be. There's a bigger range where, from a guy like maybe Adam Eaton, you know what you're getting as long as he stays healthy. And, yeah, the pitching was a plus, and they added to that. So, yeah, they had a bad year, and, that division's just so close. I just see them as the team that could stick out, especially if those guys live up to what we think they're going to be. But I can totally see where you're coming from, and it could go that way. Last year, who had the Braves winning that division,
I hear you. I'm just saying. I look at the Nats, and I look at the starting pitching is fine. Nobody's going to argue the starting pitching, but you're going to put a lot of weight on two young kids, and again, what's with the bullpen? I don't know who's closing for them. I don't know anything about that bullpen right now. That bullpen is still in shambles.
Yeah, they did get rid of a lot of that bullpen last year. It was funny because they had a really bad bullpen, then they went out and got Doolittle and Madsen a few years ago, and they were good. And I don't know if they'll wait until the season to take care of that. The thing about it is that the reliever market really, free agent-wise, obviously Edwin Diaz got traded to your Mets, but free agent-wise, I think Craig Kimbrell kind of has to sign for the rest of the dominoes to fall. You guys got Familia back, too. Joe
don't
Kelly's
remind me.
with the Dodgers. So, the setup market is kind of taking shape. But these guys who are bona fide closers out there, we're talking, the guys who might have a little bit of risk because they're older. We're talking the Andrew Millers, the Zach Brittons, obviously the Craig Kimbrells of the world. They haven't signed yet.
No.
So, if the Nats go out there, and I don't think they're going to get Kimbrel because he's asking for a lot, and he's probably not going to get $100 million, which I know we're going to get to later.
Yeah.
But he's going to get he's going to get a good contract. He's been one of the best closers in baseball for the better part of a decade now. So they have to go out and definitely get somebody. And if they get an Andrew Miller, we're looking at a team that looks a lot better. But at this point in the offseason, everybody's a question mark. And they're really close. I really think it just depends on how they finish off the offseason. Right now, like I said, I just have them a little bit a nose above everybody. We didn't even get to the Braves yet, and I really like the Donaldson deal for that. That made a lot of sense.
Here's the thing with the Donaldson deal, and I know there's some Brave fans out there that are knocking. What is there to knock? Okay, it's a 1-year deal, and all he has to do is be semi-healthy, and you're going to get great production. Plus, with a young team like Atlanta has, Donaldson's the veteran leadership. It makes all the sense in the world for them.
Well, him right there with Freddie Freeman, you got a lefty-righty combo, two of the better hitter. Freddie Freeman probably, he's kind of gotten overlooked. He's probably, he'll probably win an MVP one day, honestly. Freddie Freeman, he's not that old yet. He is really one of the most underappreciated players in baseball, year in and year out. He's a guy who's consistent. He's good with the glove at first, and he's a great hitter with home runs, or he has power to hit about 30 home runs every year. It's really underappreciated. But to put Donaldson with him, the veteran leadership, and I was going to say, it kind of reminds me of the Nelson Cruz deal in 2014. I know it's a little bit different because Donaldson signed and he was the first big domino to fall. Whereas Nelson Cruz it was almost spring training, but Nelson Cruz came into that Orioles lineup and he was the big they had good players around him. It wasn't just the Nelson Cruz show, but he was the big slugger. He was the guy who drove everybody in that year, and they ended up beating my Tigers in the playoffs. They lost to the Royals that year, who the Royals had their little 2-year dynasty, but the Orioles were really scary with that lineup that year, and they just had Nelson Cruz for a year. They paid him. I mean, it's not the Braves fans' money. The Braves fans are paying money to go to the games. That's what you want to see. You want to see your GM go out and spend $20 million on an impact guy like Donaldson. So I love that.
Speaking of, you talk about how Freddie Freeman is overlooked, and I think here's the thing with Freeman. Freeman came in kind of as Chipper was leaving, and Freeman and Chipper are a lot alike in that Freeman kind of took over that face of the franchise from Chipper, and it was pretty seamless. The difference for Freddie has been, whereas Chipper was kind of coming in at the tail end of that dynasty and they were still winning divisions, the Braves haven't been very good with Freeman there. So while Freeman's the face of the franchise, and I'm sure everybody in Atlanta loves and knows exactly who Freddie Freeman is, if you're not a avid baseball guy who follows all 30 teams, Freddie Freeman just doesn't stick out to you. Yeah,
you're right. I mean, Freddie Freeman, I love the guy. I mean, he's another guy I target in fantasy every year because I know exactly what I'm going to get for him. I can pencil him in for it, and he's consistent. But yeah, I mean, and it's not his fault that Chipper played with John Smoltz, Tom Glavine. They're developing those pitchers. The Braves, honestly, they have some really good pitchers coming up. I don't know, if some of our listeners or people watching this, you might have heard the Mike Sorokas of the world who came up, but they got Colby Allard down there. They've got Tuki Toussaint, who had a really good year. Kyle Wright. They drafted him just 2 years ago. He's major league ready. They have a lot. Ian Anderson. I mean, I keep going off.
We saw a little bit of Gahara at the end of the year too.
Yeah, he's really good too. He kind of reminds people of CC. He's a bigger guy, lefty, throws some heat, and they're really coming up. So they need to focus on those bats, honestly, because now they have a hole in right field, which they still need to fix. My boy Nick Castellanos, I want to see him win. He's my favorite player on the Tigers. He's a fun guy to watch hit. He's probably done in a Tiger uniform because his value will probably never be higher. They should probably trade him, as much as it pains me, because he's one of the only reasons that the Tigers are excited to watch. They should target a guy like him.
Here's the problem with Castellanos, because the Mets have been linked to Castellanos too. Apparently, they have conversations, and even though Alderson's out, the Mets and Tigers have done deals recently. Obviously, the Cespedes and Fulmer deal a few years ago. The problem with Castellanos, and I'm and this is Braves aside from a Mets, an NL team in general. Where do you play him? He's not good at third. He's not good in the outfield. Like, I get that the bat plays, but in the NL you can't really hide the glove.
Yes. So this is my Nick Castellanos story, because when I was getting into baseball and really getting into prospects and following them, he was the first big, draft pick the Tigers had, and I actually went to watch him play in West Michigan his first year in 2011. So I kind of grown up in a weird way. He's like the guy who kind of got me into prospects. He was a third baseman, obviously drafted. He came up with a third baseman. Then 2012, blame it on Victor Martinez's knee. It buckled, tore his ACL, out for 2012. We all know what the Tigers did. They went out and got Prince Fielder. So that moved Cabrera to third. Now, the Tigers loved Castellanos. They would not deal him in any trades. It was Jacob Turner that they ended up dealing in 2012, the Anibal. They would not let go of Castellanos. He was their guy. They're going to come up. But where are you going to play him when you got Miguel Cabrera at third and you think you're going to have Prince Fielder at first for the next decade? So what they did is moved him to left field. He never had a chance to develop at either position because, as we know, in 2013, at the end of the year, after Prince Fielder didn't have that great of a year, the Tigers decided, man, we need to get rid of this horrible contract. They made a great deal, probably Dave Dombrowski's last really good move, besides the Fulmer deal, was to get Kinsler. Dombrowski's kind of on and off those last few years, but he made a great move. He got Kinsler. Then you move Castellanos back to third, and he gets to the big leagues at third after he spent all of AAA and all of the last 2 years in the minors in left field mostly. So he hasn't really had a chance to develop. He doesn't have that great of an arm in the outfield. The fact of the matter is, he is never going to be a good defensive player. They stunted his development defensively. He never got a chance to develop anywhere defensively. If you look at his draft reports, if you go back, they had him as probably a league average third baseman. He played shortstop in high school. He's athletic. He's I mean, he doesn't look bad. When he runs the bases, he's not a base clogger by any means. The thing about him is he just never got a chance to develop anywhere. He's been in right field 1 year now. He's a guy that you can move around, though. And in an NL team, that is one plus side. Obviously, his defense is bad, and he's only got 1 year left. So you're looking at probably the Tigers. I've heard their return asking price is high. Teams really value prospects at this point, though. So you're probably looking at something a little less than what the Diamondbacks got for Goldie. I know people were disappointed, Diamondbacks fans, because I'm friends with one. And on the return for Goldie, but I thought it was pretty good. You got two former top 100 prospects.
I was saying, I thought they got a great return for Goldie.
Yeah. It doesn't look good maybe on the surface because it's like, well, Goldie's a top 10 hitter in the MLB. But really, when it comes to that, I mean, you only get in 1 year of him. And, I mean, you know, guaranteed, yeah, he could sign an extension with St. Louis. Or, well, you know, the team Cristianos could extend him, but it's you're trading for 1 year. So I think the Tigers are going to...
Let's look at this from this perspective, since we're talking about the NL East. Let's talk about the Marlins, who have done nothing. All they've done is clog it up with the JT Realmuto talks. Okay, and first of all, they've killed themselves already by just this steadfast refusal to try and not deal him in the division. Okay, before the Mets signed Ramos, Brody would have done almost anything to acquire Realmuto. And the Marlins just refused to ask for anything less than a combination of Rosario and Conforto or Syndergaard straight up, which is just ridiculous. And that's for 2 years of Realmuto, okay, which is a year more than Goldie or Castellanos, what we're talking about. Okay, but for instance, if the Mets had offered Nemo, Jimenez, and another prospect, a top 30 prospect, but, let's say somebody in their teens to 20s. I think that's a very fair offer for 2 years of Realmuto based off of what Goldie got for 1 year.
Well, my take on that is, okay, Derek Jeter, I was watching the MLB. They had this thing, MLB Network, it aired Saturday. It was the craziest facts of last year. Derek Jeter in last year has dealt the last two MVPs.
Yeah.
One won it for his team. What does he have? What does he have in that minor league system? He dealt Christian Yelich, Lewis Brinson. He had struggles. He still got potential. That guy could be a 2020 guy. So we'll say Lewis Brinson's a big, he doesn't ever seem like he'll be a high average guy. But in the reality, they didn't get much for Yelich. They didn't get much for Stanton, which, yeah, obviously there's the contract issue with Stanton, but still, I mean, the Rangers got Alfonso Soriano, and they almost got Robinson Cano for A-Rod, it was the same type of trade, really, if we want to go way back, but he just didn't get anything, and I think the pressure is really on him at this point, Jeter, because he didn't get anything, and Marcell Ozuna as well. I mean, you could argue Sandy Alcantara, who we got in that deal, is one of the better prospects he's gotten, and our Ozuna is probably the worst of the three of those of those big pieces that he's dealt. So Jeter is I think he's just really feeling some heat, because I think he's like a Jerry Jones kind of right now, where he's kind of like not in control. There's a GM, but he is kind of calling the shots. They're letting him call the shots, and when it breaks down, he hasn't gotten anything in these deals. They're taking advantage of. So he's trying to set this bar real high for Realmuto.
But I mean, if you're taking the division out of it, and that's pretty much done now. Like the Braves took care of their catching situation, the Mets took care of their catching situation. I don't think the Nationals are involved. The two obvious teams are the Dodgers. Okay, what are you going to get from the Dodgers? Verdugo. You'll get one of Ruiz or Smith, maybe. Something. I mean,
yeah.
you're gonna get a prospect heavy package. Same with the Astros, who now seem to be involved after they signed Brantley, what we're going to get to. Kyle Tucker may be involved. Again, prospect heavy. You're not going to get MLB-proven guys.
Yeah, and the thing is, if I were the Astros, I wouldn't even give up Kyle Tucker, which I know sounds maybe crazy, but Kyle Tucker can go in, and Brantley, we're going to get to him, but he's an injury risk. There's some problems. I wouldn't give up Kyle Tucker or Forrest Whitley for Realmuto, honestly, as a franchise. I just don't get the hype behind Realmuto. He's a good player. He's a top 5 catcher, but people are acting like he's the next Mike Piazza, the best catcher in baseball. Which, I mean, and catchers, you don't need a catcher to win the World Series. Who do the Red Sox have? Did you even name the catcher off the top of their head?
So
it was Vasquez that started.
Vasquez, Sandy Leone.
They were one of the best teams in history. Probably one of the top 10 best teams in history this past year. They didn't have a good catcher. They're not even out there looking for a catcher. So
you know what the funny thing is?
Catcher that
you know, and I was, when the Mets were deep in the Real Muto talks, I was saying, you know, once the price came out and it was just ridiculous, I said, Brody should look the other way. This is before, obviously, he got Ramos, and what we agree is a great price. But look the other way. Call up Pittsburgh. Francisco Cervelli, who's proven in New York, on a one-year deal would have cost them minimal as far as an asking price. And if you look, he's still up there as far as top 5 in offensive production as far as catchers are concerned. It wouldn't have been a drop-off.
Yeah. I just think people want this. See, the thing about this is when the Tigers had all these dream teams, you know, where everybody says, oh, yeah, the Tigers had Scherzer and JD, and they never won a World Series, which is true. They should have won a World Series. But also in that day and age, people used to complain, like, about Alex Avila, who he's not, you know, I mean, he was an all-star one year, but he's not great. But Avila, I'd always tell people, you know, you don't need an all-star at every position. Like, the Tigers have 6 all-stars. Like, that's plenty enough. If you can get some good guys who can play their role, and Avila was he could handle the pitching staff. He very clutch. He had a lot of clutch home runs for the Tigers. He could take a walk. Like, sometimes you just need those types of players. Like, the way the Nats attacked it, or the way the Braves attacked it last year, since we're so heavy on the NL East. The Braves had Kurt Suzuki and Tyler Flowers platooning last year, and that worked out great. Tyler Flowers really good defensively. Suzuki had a really good year at the bat, and that platoon ended up working out good. And then nobody's going to be like, oh, Tyler Flowers and Kurt Suzuki are the, you know, mecca of catchers. So I just think it's just one of those things where people are like, we want this all-star Real Muto, and it's just leading to him getting overvalued. Because, I mean, when you look at it, I will agree that the fact that the matter is Real Muto's a top 5 catcher, and there is a pretty big drop-off. I mean, there's only probably 10 catchers that play every day, where they're like, you could probably consider them everyday catchers at this point. So he's one of those guys, and he's one of the best at it. But I just, I don't get the asking price for 2 years of him. I can't get with that as a GM. I just say, I'm sorry. Like, I understand why you're asking for this, Derek, but I can't do it. So, and I think that's why he hasn't gotten traded.
All right, let's wrap up the NL East this way. Let's run through, again, let's take the Marlins out of this, because the only heavy lifting the Marlins have to do is finally deciding what they're going to do with Real Muto. And at this point, they have to move him. They don't have a choice. All right, so let's run through the teams, okay? We'll start with the Mets. Like I said, they brought in, you know, they made the deal for Cano and Diaz. They brought back Familia. You know, they signed Wilson Ramos. So what is left for them to do? For me, I see 3 things, all of which in some form they've been linked to. I still think they need another outfield bat. A.J. Pollock was a big name. I don't want to spend all that money on A.J. Pollock. Okay, A.J. Pollock, you know, he gets hurt every year. Okay, I've got enough of those guys. I'm all for getting Adam Jones on a 2-year deal. I think Adam Jones in center field, okay, the bat still plays. I think he would be re-energized just getting out of Baltimore. So that would be my answer for that. I saw today that they're linked to him. They're also looking for another infield bat, you know, to try and alleviate some of the pressure on Alonso if Alonso isn't ready right away. They've been linked to Moustakas. I think if you could get Moustakas and slide Frazier to first while Alonso gets a little more, that's great. And then if Alonso's ready, that just gives you another bat.
That's how the Brewers worked last year. Moose was already used to it.
Yeah. And, you know, they need a lefty in the bullpen. I'd love Andrew Miller. I don't think they're going to go that route. But if they're going to take the cheap route, then go Tony Sipp. You know Tony Sipp. Tony Sipp's a heck of a left-handed reliever.
World Series. Tigers got Blaine Hardy. We'll trade him too. I know he's got some interest. He's really underrated. He's had pretty good. He's flown under the radar. He had one bad year, but last 4 of the 5 years. I mean, the thing about bullpen help is there's so many ways to get it.
Yeah. The Nationals, like I said, you know, I think they need to do that bullpen. I don't know what they've got out there right now. As far as in the field, I think they're pretty much set. I don't really think they need additions anywhere unless you're going to go depth.
Second base would be the one position because they have traded Murphy and they don't really have a replacement. So See, like a DJ LeMahieu.
Yeah, I was going to say they've been. I was going to say, and I think they've been linked to LeMahieu too, so that could work.
Josh Harrison, just like a top of the order kind of bat to get on base, kind of play like a catalyst for those big bats.
The Braves, we talked. They got Donaldson. They brought back Brian McCann to do the platoon thing. They need. Listen, I shouldn't say I like. I'm probably infatuated with Julio Teheran way more than I should be, because I'm always waiting for the breakout from Julio Teheran, and it never comes. But they need somebody to be that guy, so they can slide Teheran to 2.
Yeah, and it might be Mike Fulton-Nuevitz, but you gotta wait another year to make sure he's the real deal, because he was an All-Star last year. I mean, Teheran, I'm pretty certain, has been an All-Star as well.
Yeah.
Fulton-Nuevitz, he's really good, but you need to make sure he's the real deal. So they could go out and get that ace, and then obviously they need that right fielder to replace Markakis, because Markakis was a pretty good bat for them last few years.
And then, we haven't talked about the Phillies yet, but they made the deal. They got Segura. They brought in Andrew McCutchen.
They're going to get Harper Machado.
Apparently, Harper and Hoskins are talking. Harper's asking Hoskins. But here's what I don't understand. You bring in McCutchen, okay, which, whatever. You're going to bring in... We already said, you like minor leaguers as much as I do. Their minor league system is stocked full of outfielders.
Yeah, Cousins. I mean, I think Hoskins is going to move back to first, given that.
Hoskins is going to go back to first, but still, you just locked McCutchen up for 3. You're going to lock Harper up for 10.
Well, Moniak hasn't really panned out. He's not even really considered a top 100 prospect. But they do have guys. I mean, Williams came up. Dylan Cousins is a corner outfielder at this point.
They still got Jalen Ortiz.
Yeah, Ortiz. But I mean, just if you get Bryce Harper, do any of those guys really matter? I mean,
no. But here's the thing: if you're going to go get Bryce Harper, okay, so let's say your outfield is McCutchen, Herrera, and Harper. Okay, then you got to take that stockpile. Okay, they need a legit closer, because the whole Henmar Gomez, Hector Neris thing hasn't worked for the past 2 years. And I'm sorry, they need somebody to go with Nola. Nola's not going to carry that staff.
Yeah, and Arrieta really is kind of morphed into a number 3 star at this point. His best days were definitely with the Cubs. So, the thing about them is they have a lot of money. I think the McCutchen thing was just in case they don't get Harper. They wanted to make sure they got at least one player.
Well, that's the point. They've got all this money, right? They wouldn't budge on Corbin. They wouldn't budge on Happ. They weren't even in on Evaldi. What are they doing?
Well, weren't they in on Evaldi, but they wanted him as a closer? That's what I heard.
I heard somebody asked him about closing, and he was like, "Yeah, no."
Maybe I'm wrong, but it might have not.
No, somebody did ask him. I don't know if it was them.
No, I know somebody did ask him. I don't know if I'm not 100% it was them, but I feel like they were the first team that came to mind. So I think they spent on Arrieta last year. So it's just like one of those businesses don't want to. They'll keep trying to push something out, even if it's a failed product, and then they end up losing more instead of just selling it like a discount. Have you ever heard of that theory type of deal? But it's just one of those things where they're probably in their heads. They're like, well, we signed an ace pitcher. We don't need to go out and do it. And it might just be an organizational thing where it's like they don't want to cut their losses and just give another. I mean, obviously they're not going to cut Arrieta, but they don't want to cut their losses and admit that they overpaid Arrieta.
Why are they not on the phone with Cleveland right now trying to get one of Kluber or Bauer?
They've missed their window for that, because now I heard that since they got rid of Alonso and that brilliant deal, which I love that deal for Cleveland where they got Bowers, because Yandy Diaz is really good. I've gotten to watch Yandy play in the minors and majors the last few years, and he's a really good player, but they had nowhere for him with Lindor and Ramirez. So, I mean, they turned him into Bowers, and they got rid of Alonso, and it worked out really well for them. But now I'm hearing they don't even have to necessarily.
Well, I know that they're now hesitant to do that, but if I'm Philly, I'm just throwing a treasure trove of prospects at them.
Yeah, especially those outfielders.
Yeah, really. You got 400 outfielders. You think we want to move some here?
Yeah, Dylan Cousins is not going to fit in Philadelphia at this point. So he's major league ready. Cleveland needs a corner outfielder still, because obviously Brantley signed. So you'd be on the phone with them, but I don't know. They're just not going to cut their they haven't been linked to anybody. So maybe they'll surprise us and make like a Charlie Martin type deal, and we'll write it off and be like, why did they do that? And then they'll go to the World Series and we'll be like, this guy's pitching his butt off. So
all right, let's move on. We already touched on it, but let's dive into it a little more. Brantley goes to the Astros. Surprising move, I guess, because I think some of us kind of assumed that Tucker would just kind of be given the opportunity to take that spot, and now Brantley's there. Brantley and as you said already, Brantley's coming off a good year, but Brantley's got injury history. So, are the Astros any better today? I mean, on paper they are, but I don't know if they really are.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those moves where we're looking and it looks good on paper, like you said, but 2 years, I mean, it was a 2-year deal, I think. In 2 years, we might be looking and saying that wasn't that great of a move because Brantley, I can look up on my phone right now, but I don't think that guy's played more than I don't think he's made it over 100 games in quite a few years. So we're talking about
last
a guy.
Year.
He did last year?
I think last year was the first year he actually got over.
Yeah, I mean, there's been years where he's barely played at all. So, I mean, it was just very, I don't know. He was one of the top free agents I was most hesitant about because I've watched him play. I mean, we play Cleveland 18 times a year. I watch pretty much every Tiger game. So, I mean, I see what he does, and he killed the Tigers, too. So, I've seen him at his best. I'd still be really hesitant about it, though, because he is an injury risk. But, I mean, he passed his medicals. I mean, I guess they're willing to take the risk. I guess in a weird way, it makes a little more sense because they have the best left field prospect in baseball. So if he gets hurt, you can just turn to Kyle Tucker. They have a position because Marwin's probably not coming back because they went out and got Aledmys Diaz. So I kind of had that where Marwin played a lot of left field the last few years, I'm fairly certain. So I know he was in the World Series and stuff 2 years ago. But they had kind of that position, and they like those veteran guys, bats like Reddick. He had a good year the year they won the World Series 2 years ago, but he didn't do so hot last year. So I think they're just paying him to make another run at it this year. It's their last year with Verlander. They're another team, though, where, if I were the Astros, I would be trying to get a pitcher. I thought they were going to go heavy after Corbin. But, I don't think they're going to re-sign Keuchel. So, like I said, I wouldn't have signed him. I would have put the money towards a pitcher. But it might viewing from their eyes, walking in their feet, I think that was the type of deal where they said, we're going for it. He might get hurt. He is an injury risk. We acknowledge that, but we're going for it. We like his veteran bat.
But even if he's healthy, okay? Even if he's healthy and he's, the Michael Brantley that we know, how much does that elevate them? I mean, their lineup's already good.
I mean, probably not much, honestly, when you consider the subtraction of Marwin, because Marwin was worth a couple wins above replacement every year, and Brantley's probably worth 2, 3, 4 last year. I don't know off the top of my head, but he was a good player, but not, all-star level last year. So, I mean, I don't think they're really any better at looking at them from the standpoint of from last season they've done anything this offseason that's made them that much better. They might, on paper, be a win or two better. But then on paper is always a fun game to play because you can't take into account injuries, regression, just anything like that. And I mean, it's impossible to hit that perfect. But if you take into account maybe he gets hurt and then they have some guys who regress and now McCullers is out, they might still be a worse team from last year. I mean, they've lost McCann, they haven't really went out and got, we talked about Real Muto, but if let's say Real Muto ends up going to the Dodgers, what are they going to do? Who are they going to go out and get? They're going to have to plug the hole along,
Grandal's still out there.
Yeah, and then they've let a lot of big. Nelson Cruz would have made more sense for them on a 2-year deal to me because Nelson Cruz could have just came in and DH'd. They don't have Gaddis. I don't really get that. But another thing they could do is throw it back out there as a Tiger fan. Nick Castellanos, he can play left field. He can DH. And he can play a little bit of third base for, Craig gets hurt again. You can move Bregman short or something maybe, But he's another guy to watch out because they have a catcher, Garrett Stubbs, who I think the Tigers would be really interested in because he could come up and share bats with Grayson Griner. And then out of all those pitchers they have at the top that aren't like Forrest Whitley, they have Perez, Josh James. The Tigers could get 1 or 2 of those guys. I think they could have a deal for Castellanos for for both teams. So I would look for them to make another move, honestly. They need one more bat. They definitely need a top of the rotation arm. They've lost. I mean, McCullers isn't gone, but McCullers, he was kind of going to be their number 3 guy coming into next year. I feel like they were really, they really like McCullers. I really like McCullers, but now he's having Tommy John surgery. So you've lost him for a year. You've lost Keuchel. I mean, you've lost Charlie Morton. You've lost 3/5 of your rotation last year. You got to answer that somehow. I mean, you got Josh James, who I just mentioned, who could come in and be a 4 or 5 guy, but you want to put too much pressure on young guys. You got Forrest Whitley, too. But, like I said, you need another veteran arm. You need another veteran arm if you're the Astros, right?
If you're, you brought up Keuchel, and 2 years ago, Keuchel would have been the top pitcher in this market. He would have been well above Corbin. But I mean, even last year, he was just at times he wasn't even. I wouldn't even say average. He was horrible.
Yeah, he can't strike people out. That's always been his issue.
So in this market, now with Corbin gone and Happ gone, he's kind of the de facto top guy left. I mean, I'm trying to gauge what even he could be. I'm not even going to say what he wants, but what he can get.
So you're thinking maybe the Astros sneak in and get him on a 1-year deal or a cheap deal?
I'm not even. No, I don't think the Astros want him back. But we talked about the Phillies and how or even the Braves, how they both need somebody. Can he be a number 2 at this point? I don't know if he can be a number 2.
No, I mean they don't need him to be number 2 at this point. They just need him to be number 3 because they got Cole and JV. But yeah, I mean, he's not a number 2 at this point. Yeah. Like I said, you had the Cy Young. He got extremely lucky, I guess you could say, and he was able to really control the type of contact he got, and he got a little bit of an increase in his strikeouts, which is what led to so much success. But he needs a good defense behind him, or else his numbers will happen.
And then you look at the Happ deal, you look at the Eovaldi deal. How much more can you really give Keuchel over those two?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing Keuchel has over Eovaldi is obviously health, and he's been a little more consistently. He's been more of an innings eater, I guess, than Eovaldi over the last few years, but Happ's an innings eater. So, I mean, I would look at him and say a little bit more than Happ got. But the thing about Keuchel is he's a little bit younger, so he's going to want more money, more years. So,
I mean, realistically, what are you going to give him? 360?
I mean, I wouldn't do that. I mean, see, the thing is, if I were GM, there's just guys I wouldn't even contact unless, I got, a steal on them. But, I wouldn't do that with Keuchel even. But I can see a team giving him that, especially a desperate team. There's always a team like the Giants last year who are we're going for it. We got one left.
Again, going back to the Mets, because that's always where I'm going to kind of go back to.
Oh, fine.
Brody has talked about getting rotation depth. Okay, and I don't think that this is even an option. But if you could get Keuchel on a 2-year deal, and I could slot him in at 4 or 5 in that rotation, I'd totally do it.
I mean, that's all you have to do in that rotation because you got. I mean, Matt's a question mark, but you guys, and everybody's kind of an interest with the Mets at the beat a dead horse. But you got DeGrom, Syndergaard, Wheeler, Keuchel, Matz is how I kind of laid out. Maybe throw Keuchel 3 just because you want the lefty-righty mix. But yeah, I mean, that would work out really good. I mean, right now, their 5th starter is who? I mean, who's 5th on your depth chart? I mean, they don't really
Corey Oswalt?
Yeah. So, I mean,
they don't have anybody.
But I think they're going to spend that money elsewhere. So, I mean, it just...
Well, no, I don't think they're going to go down the road of Dallas Keuchel or anybody, on the... if anything, I saw somebody bring up the suggestion today of, maybe they go out and get Francisco Liriano as being, a left-hander out of the bullpen and then a spot starter at times. I could see them doing something like that, but I don't think they're going to dive in and actually get a real starter.
Yeah. I mean, Liriano, I don't know.
I don't want Liriano in any way.
Yeah, he wasn't really... We couldn't even trade him. So, I mean, I guess he did it... I don't have any ill will towards Francisco Liriano because he didn't have a horrible year, but we're also talking about a Tiger team where we just wanted innings 8 and to try and flip him, which we obviously didn't do. But I mean, it's a different story. So, but yeah, I mean, he's not bad, but I can't see him on a winning team at this point, being a starter.
All right. We can't do a baseball show without talking about the two big names. So we already kind of touched on Harper. Okay? So there's two questions when it comes to Harper. Where and how much?
Okay.
So you sounded like you're of the belief he's going to the Phillies.
I don't know he's going to the Phillies. I would say either one of him and or Machado will go there. If you add those probabilities together, I'd say it's over 75% that one of them lands there, because the Phillies are just so willing, and they're obviously making moves. They got that young core. I mean, everything just makes so much sense for them to go out and get a guy that's an impact superstar. If I were a general manager, Harper is 26. I would go up to 10 years on Harper. I mean, I don't think that's that crazy. Just don't play him in center field. I mean, he should be right. I filled his value last year. You know, you look at those value numbers, you're like, well, he only had like a 3.6 WAR last year, and you're like, yeah, but he played in center field, which literally cost him a whole win probably, because I mean, obviously center fielders are valued more, but he couldn't play center field. He's just, I mean, that's just not the player. He's not a center fielder. But yeah, I mean, I would go 10 years in Harper. Then go 10 years.
Well, I'm not worried about the years. I'm talking about the money, because you know he that first number he wants to be a 4.
You don't see him signing anywhere for less than $30 million average annual value, right?
I find it hard to believe he would do that, especially with Boris at the helm.
Yeah, I would say anywhere between 30 and 40. I mean, the thing about it is we were talking about this 2 years ago, and we're like, well, Machado's going to get 400, Bryce is going to get 500, and then when Trout gets free agency, he's going to get 700-800. But the thing is, it's never really progressed like that. I mean, it's always been a slow progression up. So, like, I can only see that it kind of exponentially grew, you know, as everything else grew. You had, like, Nolan Ryan was one of the first guys to get $1 million a year. Then it kind of grew fast. Now it's kind of tapped off where, like, Kershaw will sign, and then David Price will sign, and his average annual value will be, like, 0.7 to $1 million more than Kershaw's was. It kind of moves like that. So I would say, like, I think $400 million is definitely a great place for him and Boris to start negotiations, because they got to look out for themselves. They obviously, I mean, if you're out looking for a job, you're going to want to value yourself and get the most money. So I can see why they'd start at $400 million. I think he's going to end up 350, 360.
If you're the Phillies, is there any hesitance to signing a Harper or Machado because you're looking ahead 2 years from now at Mike Trout and knowing that you probably have somewhat of an advantage in signing Trout because Trout lives here and loves this area?
He loves the Eagles. Yeah, I mean, no. I don't see that. I mean, that's just too much. It's just too much of, I don't know. That's just putting your hat on too much. I mean, you don't want to wait 2 years because their window's open now. Like, we spent a whole half hour just talking about how close that at least is, and basically debating that who could, you know, win the division and everything. And it's going to be really close, and the Phillies are right there. I mean, they were right there, and then they really, really, really fell off in September last year. But they were right there for the whole year. And Gabe Kapler's a really smart, bright guy. I like him at the helm. He's a player, and he's, you know, that new wave. So I think he can bring both leadership and, like, the way the game is played and thought about now. I think it's a pretty attractive location. And, yeah, if I were Trout, I want to go there, per se, but I mean, you just can't play that waiting game because they're ready to compete right now.
Okay,
you know?
so you've got Harper in the 3 to 350 range.
Yeah, I would say if I had to predict, I'll say he probably doesn't sign for, like, we'll just say 8 years, 340.
What was the Stanton deal?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember. It was 300 and something million. But it was definitely for a lot of years, and there was a lot of provisions in there.
Yeah, well, whatever. He's going over the Stanton deal. Basically, they're basically laying it out as, here's the Stanton deal, and then plus that. That's what Harper's getting.
And that's fair, because Harper's a better.
Yeah.
I mean, Stanton's more one-dimensional.
I'll go over 350 for Harper. I don't think he's going to get to 4.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think he'll get over 350. I think he'll end up in the maybe somewhere in the 375 range.
Yeah, I think Machado honestly has a better chance to get 4 just because he plays
I don't think. Here's the thing. I don't think Machado's getting 3.
Yeah, I mean it depends. I don't know. I could see Machado ending. There's a really good chance that like these guys go to like teams that you wouldn't expect. Like like who would have thought Albert Pujols? He was the best player and a free agent. He went to the Angels, which at the time, I mean, that was before Mike Trout. They're kind of like the Rangers were in charge of that division. I mean, it was just like, why would he go there? Like, why are they spending all this money? So I could see like Machado going to the White Sox.
Well, that's the thing. If right, like let's say Harper goes to the Phillies, like that's kind of where all the tea leaves are leading us right now. So let's say Harper's off the board, he goes to the Phillies. So that leaves Machado. Right, the White Sox have been rumored to be the other big player for these guys. The Dodgers but the Dodgers haven't done anything to clear payroll yet. So I'm not.
You're under luxury tax, though.
Yeah, I'm not going to go nuts with the Dodgers yet. Right. Plus, I don't think the Dodgers want to bring Machado back anyway. I think they're more in on Harper than Machado. But if Machado didn't want to go to the White Sox, let's just say he was like, they're so, they're not going to win for 3 years. Like, I don't feel like waiting. Like, I just did that with Baltimore. Like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Machado, to me, I think you have a better chance of talking Machado into this than you do Harper. You have a better chance if you are a team that is legit contender, talking Machado into doing a short-term big money deal. And when I say big money, I don't mean like, Donaldson $21 million a year. I mean big money.
Like $40 million a year.
Yeah, like 4 for 2 with an opt-out after 2.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It's definitely a unique idea. I could see it. I mean, if I were a free agent, like in that position, I was that good. But I would be looking. I don't know. The thing is that we've got this thing now where if you look at the market research and everything that everybody looks at, you're looking at teams are really a lot more hesitant, even if you're a superstar, to pay a guy over 30. So I would make sure that I was a free agent at like 28. I could see the team convincing him with a front-loaded deal with opt-outs, but they're probably going to make him sign like an 8-year deal with a player opt-out after 2 years.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Machado could get big money in a couple of years and then go back into free agency at 30.
Yeah. Yeah,
not to mention, if you're Machado, I think right now there's a stain on him. There's people that don't care. I'm one of them. I don't care. You want to portray him as a bad boy. I don't care. He's still gonna he's still gonna hit. He's still gonna feel all that stuff. But there's some teams that probably would have gotten into him before that. So I don't know how. He might have had a limited market to begin with that I think is even more so limited after that.
Yeah, I mean, he's got that bad boy thing going with him now, but come on. I mean, you're not going to tell, like, this is a situation where, like, you're going to deal with his antics because he's a good player, so.
Trust me.
Nobody's going to be like, I'm not signing him now. Like, the Yankees still are talking about him, even though, they had Steinbrenner come on and Reggie Jackson come out and say, oh, we don't play the game this way as a Yankee, and they, said he's gonna have to hustle if he comes here. Come on, he's man, he can get away with murder. Like he's gonna be fine. Like they're gonna try and get him even if he has controversy about them. I don't buy that. I don't buy that any team that wasn't out on him became out on him because of his antics in the playoffs. And I thought what he did in the playoffs, especially, I thought the thing with Aguilar was the worst. It was pretty bush league. I can understand the sliding thing. I mean, you're going hard, breaking up with the whole play. It's baseball. The thing where you try to kick out somebody's leg who, yeah, he might have been a little bit on first base, but he was giving you a clear path to touch first. I thought that was a little bit ridiculous on his part. But nobody's going to care about those antics because if Manny Machado's hitting 330 winning MVPs, they're not going to care if he kicks somebody's leg every once in a while. Like, that's just what it comes down to.
All right. Let's switch over to the relief market here. There's 3 big names: Kimbrel, Miller, Britton. Those are the big three. I mean, there's guys after that, but that's kind of the top tier here.
Oh yeah.
Kimbrel is asking for 6 years and north of $100 million. What is he on?
Well, yeah, he's not going to get that. Like I said, just recently, obviously, Harper, you're going to come in and start that demand high. And yes, he is not going to get that. It's crazy. But hear me out on this. I can kind of understand where him and is his agent Boris?
I don't know if he's a Boris client.
I feel like it has to be Boris, but just with the way that it came out. But the way that happened, I can kind of see why they do that because, I mean, what other guy are you going to argue deserves $100 million that is a free agent right now? I mean, you can obviously argue like Trinan or Edwin Diaz if they were free agents. They still have a lot of team control left with them. But he's got the best case. I mean, he's been a closer. He came up in 2010 at the end of the year. He pitched really well in relief down to pennant chase. Then he took over the reins in 2011. He's been the best closer in baseball most of those seasons. And the years that he hasn't been the best closer, he's been one of the best closers. So, and nobody else, I mean, can you think of anybody else who's been a closer since even like 2013 consistently like that? So if anybody has a case for 6 years, $100 million, that's a relief pitcher and a closer. Obviously, we value the closers, and there's players definitely value the mental aspect of it because really, hypothetically, when you're looking at it, a guy who comes in with the bases loaded and no outs in the seventh inning is going to be in a tougher situation than the closer if he comes in with the bases empty starting off the ninth inning. But teams tend to put their closer in that position. So out of all the closer guys in today's market, it makes the most sense that he could ask for $100 million. He's not going to get it. It's a good starting point for him, and he's definitely not going to get it in today's day and age because there's the bullpenning movement, which I agree with, and I like it. I mean, I know some people say it takes away from the game, but it makes strategic sense, and teams are going to value a guy who can get outs anywhere in the game more than a closer at this point. But I can see where he's coming from to start off the bar high, and he'll probably sign, honestly, a deal over $50 million. But
I think he'll get over 50, but he's not going to 4 years. 4.
Yeah, he's older now. I mean, he's not old, but he's older. So, I mean, he's not, So, yeah, I mean, like I said, he's got the best case out of anybody in baseball, closer-wise, to ask for that kind of money, but it doesn't make sense. But I can see...
I mean, I could see 470.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but if you come out saying 470, just the wheeling dealing nature of sports and stuff, teams are going to try and negotiate you down. So
I hear you, but I mean, come on, just stay on the planet at least.
Yeah.
What about Andrew Miller? I mean, Andrew Miller is 2 years removed from being the best reliever in baseball. There was no argument. That Cleveland run, was purely thanks to Andrew Miller.
Yes.
Last year, for the first time, pretty much in his career, injuries really hit him hard, and he was on the field, off the field, and then toward the end of the season when he was on the field, he didn't look like Andrew Miller.
Yeah, they had to go get Brad Hand because he, was such a question mark. Yeah.
So now, obviously, the teams are kind of bringing up durability issues and overusage, but yeah, I'm not going to give Andrew Miller 4 years here, but if you can get Jerry's Familia got 330. Okay, so if you want to ding Andrew Miller up, Miller's older and usage and whatnot, but if you could get Miller for 224, 225, that's a solid deal.
Yeah, I've actually met Andrew Miller quite a few times, and I can tell you with certainty that he's one of the nicest players I've ever had a chance to interact with in the minors or majors. I know he's a hard worker, so I know those injuries aren't necessarily going to hold him back completely, but he will be a steal because people are undervaluing him because of those injuries, and I think he's got a little bit left in the tank. I'd probably only give him 2 years because, I mean, it's just hard to give anybody more than 2 years. That's like 34 at this point. I mean, so many guys retire at 38, 39 now. I mean, he's probably got 2 more contracts in him if he can, push it out. But like if I'm a contender, I'm definitely looking at him as the affordable option because that slider, if he's healthy, that slider is the best slider in baseball.
And this is what bothers me about the Mets. They need a left-hander. You know, originally, like it was said that they went with Familia over Miller because of the concerns. But like Miller and Callaway have that connection, okay?
Yes.
And you know that, yeah, okay, there's risk, but there's risk with everybody you've gotten. There's risk with Cano. There's risk with Wilson Ramos. The reward is so great with Andrew Miller that if he can come in at, you know, the numbers we're throwing out, why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you why teams wouldn't do it. There's the injury risk and the age risk. And obviously, your most weighted thing is going to be your most recent season. So, I mean, that's why there's all of the weight, you know, on the market. Like I said, he'll sign pretty quickly after. I bet you he'll be the last domino to fall out of the three that we're mentioning. Because, you know, I don't know. Britton has his injury risk, but Britton's
I was going to say, so let's go to Britton. Because Britton, basically, the last 2 years, we haven't seen him. You know, he had the. I'm probably going to get these mixed up, but he had the ruptured Achilles 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was. I drafted him here in fantasy, so yeah.
Yeah, 2 years ago, like first day of spring training, ruptured Achilles, and then last year it was a similar thing where like he wasn't ready, and then you know it kind of went off and on and off and off, and then here's the thing. When he was with the Yankees at first, he got off to a slow start, but toward the end and in the playoffs, he started showing signs of old Zach Britton. And here's the thing that I always try and think about when it comes to guys and injuries, especially like big injuries like Britton had. When they come back, there's always going to be that period where they're not them. You've got to deal with that, you know, subpar period before they start to finally find that rhythm, find that groove, and start looking like themselves again. And depending on what the injury is, like Tommy John, like that first year, throw it out the window. The first year they're back, throw it out the window. It's not them.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so the fact that Britton needed basically half to 3/4 of the year to semi-look like himself didn't surprise me. But I think if you're a team and you're trying to talk yourself into Zach Britton, just look at the last month and you know the stretch run for the Yankees and then the playoffs. He showed you enough.
Yeah, he's extremely good. He had that injury, like you said, 2 years. But, I mean, those are freak injuries. Like, taking it to a different spot, staying local. I remember the first few years of Matt Stafford's career, everybody was like, he's injury prone because he missed a lot of games. But the thing about it was they were kind of like, not freak injuries, but they were injuries that just happen. Like, sometimes somebody breaks their leg. It doesn't mean that they're injury prone, and then they might break their finger the next year. But it just might have been two stupid accidents where it's not like they're at Cobaldelli and they're literally every time they get out on the field, they're just like, I pulled something. So
I hope he can make it as a manager.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that you know, sometimes you really got to look at the type of the injury. And obviously in today's day and age, there's so much data, so much, you know, I'm sure teams consult medical people even more than we know. Teams have their own personal staff. So, you know, I think if the team looks at him and they get him in and, you know, and they consult some people about it medically, I think they'll find that, like, he ruptured his Achilles. It was a freak accident. Like, and then last year, you know, it happens, and he was healthy most of his career before that. I mean, I can't recall any, like, long length of time he missed on DL. So I just think it might be one of those situations where he's not really an injury-prone guy. He just really timed his two injuries really bad because they were the 2 years going into free agency. It's 3 years ago. Another guy who would have you might have brought him up for the 6-year, $100 million deal, and we might not have been.
Before Andrew Miller, we were talking about Zach Britton as the best reliever in baseball because that's what he was.
So yeah, I mean,
the Phillies make sense for Zach Britton. They need somebody in that ninth inning.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'd still be scared because it's natural human nature, and I said that before. I mean, I don't know. Britton's been so injured the 2 years, he's barely stepped foot on a field at times until the end of last year. But, I mean, if they come in and they look at those injuries and they're not like, you know, it's not like he's turning into, you know, the guy in SpongeBob who always yells my leg. He will be he will be more sought after. But there's always going to be that worry and that risk, and the team that signs fan base are going to have to deal with, them being like, we spent this much money on a guy who's only pitched this many innings in the last 2 years. But it's yeah. I mean, there's going to be free agents that we look 5 years down the road and we're like, that's a great signing, that's a bad signing. It's all about figuring out who is who, and he's going to be one of those tough cases because I could see him going either way. He's just at a weird point in his career too.
All right.
Where he's, but yeah.
All right, we're almost at the end of the show here, so let's discuss a couple of ideas that have been tossed out here over the past couple of weeks, and we'll wrap it up with that. So let's first talk about something Dave Dombrowski, your old general manager, brought up.
Yep.
He brought up this idea that he would like to see an off-season. I don't even know how he worded it, but basically a deadline for signings and trades in an effort to kind of move along, the hot stove, so to speak. Not let Boris kind of drag these guys out until spring training.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. When you first hear it, you're like, great idea. Forces everybody to kind of, let's move this along. Let's not drag it out. Teams, everybody's got to move, a little faster on both ends.
Yeah.
But then when you step back and you think about it, it's like, yeah, Dave, I understand why you want it. Gives you all the leverage in the world.
Yeah, Players Association is never going to agree to that. So you
now,
put that in a pipe dream.
Now, here's the one thing that could happen, and John Morosi was the guy who brought this up, and I don't even remember this. Apparently, this was a thing, but there used to be a deadline, an off-season deadline for interleague trades. So, if you were going to have a player, say the Mets and Tigers were going to make a deal, you had until a certain date to make that deal. After that date, you could not do it. That, I think, is something you could do. Because now if you're a team and you've got, for instance, let's say you've got a Nick Castellanos and everybody views him as a DH-only guy. Okay?
Yeah.
So if you've got, now, this is a bad example because the Tigers are already in the AL and we're talking about a DH-type guy. But, you get my point. It would limit your market severely if there's a deadline and you can't make that move because you've cut off half the league. That's a viable idea, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely more viable. Like I said, and you said basically, it's just a dream because no guy, player association.
All the teams have all the leverage in that idea. No player has leverage.
Hurry up, and sign JD. I mean, and it wouldn't even work out for teams. I mean, JD Martinez. I don't even understand why he was. At what point in the year did he sign JD? It was. Pitchers and catchers had already reported, and JD Martinez was still a free agent last year. The deal was not official. I remember I was down at Braves camp visiting the Braves last year, and JD was just in the process of signing with the Red Sox. So I don't understand why Dombrowski would even suggest that when his best piece, obviously that's his best player, but one of his best hitters last year, he signed literally on the brink of March. And so I don't really understand that. The players are never going to agree to that. I mean, that's just suicide for the players as far as they would not get as much money. And that's the whole goal. There are better things to worry about when it comes to baseball. So, personally, I don't really see the reason for it. I mean, the trading deadline makes sense. So you can't be like, we'll give you a really good prospect because we're in it now and there's 2 weeks left in the year. I mean, obviously there needs to be a trading deadline or at least a deadline, like a tentative trading deadline like we have, and then the waiver deadline where the guy is only playoff eligible if he's in your organization by the end of August. I mean, that makes sense, but I just don't see the reason, I guess, other than, I know he wants to speed things up and spring training be spring training, but who cares? I mean, the fans aren't really paying attention to spring training, so if there's a move that happens in March, it's a crazy trade, it kind of stimulates fan interest, so I don't see what it has to do for anything. Like, I remember one year, the Tigers traded for Kyle Farnsworth right before the end of spring training and kind of got me a little more excited for the year, especially because we're like, wow, we got this guy who can throw 100, and, my dad came home and told me about it, and it generated that excitement in our household where we wouldn't have been talking about the Tigers that night if it wasn't for that trade anyways.
Well, here's the other thing. I don't know if Dave Dombrowski has paid attention, but baseball isn't exactly on the forefront of people's minds anymore. Okay, the hot stove at least generates interest. If that if that hot stove is 2 weeks, what are you talking about in from Christmas till March?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
baseball's
exactly.
not going to be a topic if you shorten that. So no, Dave. I was saying baseball's got enough problems with attention. Stop trying to divert even more.
Yeah. I don't like that. All right, what's the next idea?
All right. The other thing is, okay, Nick, you've got your AL thing. I've got my NL thing. You can have your DH. I don't want it. Okay? But it keeps being brought up that we're inching ever closer to the idea that we're going to have a universal DH and it is going to infiltrate my side of this. However, if that is going to happen, I'm for a rule that makes the DH a little more strategic. And here is one that Buck Showalter threw out. In that, if you have a universal DH, you have the DH for as long as your starting pitcher is in the game. The moment you go to the bullpen, you lose the DH.
Yeah.
I'm okay with this idea. I think, A, it brings a lot of strategy to it, and B, one thing that we have, in this new age now of bullpenning, as they call it, the one thing that the knock that we always hear is that starters don't go deep enough in the games. This would force the starters to go back to what I grew up on, and you might have even grew up on. You're younger than me, so you might have caught the tail end of this, where guys actually went 8-9 innings.
I remember Roy Halladay and James Shields had a lot of complete games one year. And Doc Halladay, rest in peace to him. He was one of my favorite guys.
Halladay was the last of the horses.
Yeah, he was definitely. I definitely have an appreciation for him, and I think he'll get in the Hall of Fame this year, rightfully so. I can't wait for that. It'll be a great moment. I was so sad when that plane crash happened last year because he's one of my favorites growing up. But yeah, he definitely. I remember one time he went 10 innings against the Tigers. It was back when the Tigers were horrible, but he's a guy that I always love playing against because and here's what I think about the whole rule. Getting back to just that part of it instead of taking a trip down memory lane is that. I think it will not deter a team like the Rays from still doing their strategy because they're going to have their Blake Snell who's going to go. I mean, ideally, most of his starts, hopefully, he'll go 7 or 8 innings. You'll have the DH that day. When they bullpen, they can counter strategy this and maybe put in your DH hitting 9th or something and just use a pitcher as the DH. That's the thing about it. You really have to set rules about it because they could put Blake Snell and start him at DH and then just pinch hit for the pitcher because, I mean, the opener, I know Ryan Yarbrough pitched 4 innings, so Yarbrough might have to hit once a game, but that's really only one at bat you have from a pitcher a game. And so I'm not sure how much it would really penalize teams. It's a good idea, though, and it would bring more strategy to the game. I'm always in favor of that. So it'd be interesting to try out. It'd be something that I think you'd have to try out in the American League AAA parks. So that'd be something I'd see down in Toledo when I go watch the Mudhens play. Definitely something that needs to be tested.
I'll say 2 things. One of the greatest World Series games of all time was in 91. I forget which year. 90 or 91.
Morris and Smoltz, right?
Yeah, Morris and Smoltz. Neither guy went out.
Yes.
10 innings. Yeah. Neither left.
Both have ties to Michigan. Morris played for the Tigers.
Yeah, okay? So neither left, okay?
Yeah.
We didn't need bullpens. And number 2, you know how you don't have to worry about the strategy of this idea? You keep the DH on your side. Leave me alone. I don't want the DH.
I wouldn't want to watch, personally, pitchers have such a low batting average and everything, so I've been more of a proponent of the universal DH. But I can understand.
But here's the thing.
You gotta have the fan side of it, though.
Pitchers weren't always this bad. Pitchers have a low batting average because now in high school, college, whatever, they're not asked to hit. Or they come up in another position where they did actually hit, and then they go through the minor league systems where they don't hit, and after 4 years they forget how to hit.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a fundamental issue. It's not their problem. They can hit.
I was looking at something the other day just for fun, just because I was bored. I was looking at the people who hit the ball over the old center field or the center field at Polo Grounds. Cause I don't know if any fans recall. I'm sure you know about Polo Grounds. It was 500 and something.
I was going to say that was a major shot back in the day.
Yeah, but one of them was Schoolboy Rowe, who you might not even know, but I know him because he was a Tigers pitcher, and he did it in batting practice. But he, like I said, was a pitcher. So I mean, back in the day, pitchers could really hit some long balls, apparently. So that really surprised me. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
It wasn't until probably the mid to late 90s, like right around the home run boom, like right around that Sosa McGuire era, that pitchers started fading as far as hitters.
Yeah.
Okay? Throughout my childhood, pitchers could hit. That whole Brave staff could hit. They were good at pitching and hitting.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Like forget hitting. Pitchers don't even know how to bunt anymore.
Players don't know how to bunt.
Well,
Joey Gallo should know how to bunt against the shift. Like, why? That's literally single.
That's another thing. Since we're talking about rules, stop talking about banning the shift. The shift has been around forever. Tell guys to learn how to hit the other way.
But
then they won't shift.
So, yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, lefties just tend to pull the ball more often, but if you can't do a bunt, I mean, if you teach guys how to bunt and spend the time with them bunting, I mean, imagine if Joey Gallo just spent an hour or two in the cage per day in spring training. That's what spring training's for. And players complain that it's too long, which it probably is too long. I mean, you're there for a month and a half before you start the season. But you got all that time right now, so you might as well take advantage of it and learn how to pull.
If Cody Bellinger wasn't talked to about launch angle for 4 years, he'd actually hit in the gaps and go the other way instead of trying to pull it to right field over the wall every time he's at the plate.
Well, I'm for the launch angle to an extent, but I think there has to be a happy medium where if you're a really smart hitter, because I mean, I'm sure you can think of Mets examples, but like one guy who comes to my head that was a really smart, good number 2 hitter, the Tigers for years was Placido Blanco, who you know really well, with the NLEs. He could handle the bat. He had some power, not a lot of power. He only hit like 10 home runs max in his best year as Tigers, but I mean, he could definitely hit the gaps, had power. But he knew it was like he always knew kind of what the situation was and what he could do and what he couldn't do in the situation. And he could handle a bat, and he tried to hit it. I mean, and if people, you know, they say, oh, a walk's just as good a hit, we've accepted that. It's just as good as a single at this point. I mean, people really value walks, where 10, 15 years ago they didn't value walks as much. So why not value being able to get a bunt single in a situation where there's nobody on and you're down, where you can get a guy on base and maybe spark a rally, versus trying to, like, yeah, if you're up by 3 runs, let Joey Gallo hit away. If he hits a home run, it's a 4-run lead. Like, if you're down by 1 run late in a close game, like, yeah, Joey Gallo could hit a home run, but also he could bunt down the line. So maybe have him try and bunt, at least until he has a strike or two on him, and then if he can't get the bunt down, let him swing away.
There used to be a term, you know, they used to call guys professional hitters. You know, like Keith Hernandez was a professional hitter. You know, things like that. We don't have professional hitters anymore. There are very few guys that walk up to the plate with some sort of plan or idea of the situation. Guys are just up there swinging for the fences. And when we talk about the problem with the game and, you know, pace of play and if hitters were better, the game would be better.
Yeah.
I think the people who that watch baseball, okay, and let's face it, the people who watch baseball right now are the people that are purists, people that care about baseball, because the average person isn't watching baseball anymore. It's just what it is. And guess what? Me and probably you and a lot of other purists don't want to watch a home run derby.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with a home run derby per se, but I mean, like I said, there just has to be a happy medium. Like, thing is that it's not one size fits all when it comes to hitting. I mean, you can't bring up Dixon Machado and expect him to be a launch angle hitter every time. For a guy like JD Martinez, it works. I don't expect JD Martinez to fix his approach or change his approach when he's hitting 330, hitting 40 home runs every year. But if they want to cut, I mean, just personally, like, I would be teaching guys both things, because launch angle definitely has good things to it. I mean, when you're trying to hit, and if you're a home run, if you got a lot of power, and there's, you know, and you're in a situation where there's nothing else better to do, yeah, sure, hit with the launch angle. But But then when, obviously you're not trying to get outs, but if they're giving you a gap of the field to get a hit in, then you should learn how to hit to it,
Here's the thing with launch angle. If you are, and here we're going to try and do a visual representation of what I'm talking about. If you are hitting like this, where you're coming straight across and then you're coming up at the end with the point of contact, that's fine. That's launch angle to a T. When you're doing the Joey Gallo, Chris Davis, where everything is just a U, an uppercut, that's not it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my opinion probably isn't strong. And home run derbies aren't always fun to watch because I like to watch the pitchers. But I mean, there's been many 1-0 games. I remember I went to a 1-0 game with a couple of my buddies a few years ago, and it was one of the most exciting games they'd been to all year because it was so close. We were on the edge of our seat. And it literally came down to Jared Saltalamacchia throwing a guy out at second in the ninth inning. It might have been Byron Buxton, but it was against the Twins. Might have been one of those fast guys the Twins had, but I'm pretty sure it was Buxton. And I mean, there can be exciting things other than the home run. Yeah, the home run is exciting, and like I said, I get the launch angle to an extent, and I definitely get the guys that use it. And yeah, it doesn't work for everybody. I just think it needs to be more of a situational thing because if they're giving you a whole side of the field to hit it, you should be able to hit into it. I mean, God forbid that you bunt. And I mean, Joey Gallo, if he bunted it down the line, he could have a double. So
I just think that there are so many nuances to a baseball game that the Gallos and Chris Davises of the world eliminate 99% of them.
Yeah, it's not a one size fits all approach, and I guess it's okay even just to have one guy like Chris. I mean, there's always been one guy on the Tigers that I'm like, yeah, he's just an all or nothing guy.
Ask Oriole fans how they feel about having that one guy, Chris Davis.
Yeah, I mean, he's frustrating and he's exciting, and you hate him and you love him, which is fine.
I think they hate the fact that they're paying him $160 million as Manny Machado walked out the door.
Well, that's not Chris Davis' fault, though. That's I don't know what they were thinking there. It was not a smart idea. But yeah, I mean, what it comes down to is it's not a one size fits all approach, I guess. I mean, every player can use it, but not every guy should be uppercutting every time. Like Earl Weaver, he said, yeah, I'd rather sit around and wait for this 2-run home run. But yeah, of course. I mean, like the Yankees are really good. They won 100 games and they broke the record for home runs, and they're really good. But the thing is, the Yankees have a lot of guys who can get on base too. I mean, Joey Gallo, he can get on base, he walks. But the thing is, he takes away from it with how bad a hitter is. He's only getting on base 30% of the time. If he could bunt for a single, just once every 20 at bats, or once every 30 at bats, I mean, his on base percentage would be so much higher. He's so much more valuable to a team. So I think it just comes down to they almost got to be a little more situationally smart, and it'll eventually. I mean, I definitely think certain things are here to stay. I think the use of the bullpen will be something that is here to stay, especially in today's day and age where, guys aren't going to throw 200 pitches anymore because they realize it's really bad for your elbow. But so I think certain things are here to stay. I think the launch angle is kind of here to stay in a way, but I definitely don't think that everybody's going to be using it. Like everybody's using it right now in 10, even 5 years. I mean, the game changes really quick. If you look in 2014, we were looking at like where pitchers were dominant. There was no offense. And now we're looking at there's so many home runs and so many strikeouts, but hitters are still pretty like.
It's just whatever. It's just whatever somebody comes up with on the computer tomorrow. That's the age that we're at. Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say somebody, analytics. A whole front offices now are analytics driven. Somebody's gonna come up with a new stat, tomorrow, and then we'll talk about that for the next 3 years. We never even heard about launch angle until last year, and now it's the thing that we always talk about.
Yeah, I'm good with the analytics. Like I said, I mean, I might be a little more for it than you, which is fine to disagree on certain things. But it's definitely not a one size fits all thing. So,
listen, I'm not against analytics. It's just there are certain stats that are useful, and then there's certain stats where you're just really overanalyzing things.
Yeah, launch angle is not a one size fits all.
And again, and this will make me sound like the old person on this show, but
it's fine.
The computer can tell you as much as you want. The eye test still matters.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it definitely does. Scouts. I mean, I think major league teams realize that too because we're not firing all the scouts. Like it's not like the Ski to Moneyball where you just like get out. I mean, that's just a Hollywood thing. there are still scouts. I still see them at the minor league games I go to, and I still go and watch players with my eyes because I wouldn't. I mean, like Christian Stewart, I watched him all last year. Cause I went to a lot more Mud Hens games, entire games last year for obvious reasons because that's where our future kind of is, and you know, like there are certain things that the stats told me, and certain things that obviously I saw from watching him. He kind of had a dip in his batting average the second half of the year, but you know, it's just like a learning curve thing. It's harder to use the analytics on minor leaguers too. You have to kind of figure out what matters at what level. Because there's been studies done. There's this Fangraphs thing where a guy makes the projections, and for minor leaguers, I'm forgetting what it's called off the top of my head. It's Kotoa. I don't know if you've ever seen those. He makes projections for minor leaguers. He did all these things though, and they found out that like walks, the amount of walks that a hitter gets in the lower minors isn't really relevant. It's not significant to like any indication of what they do in the majors because there's so many wild pitchers that are never going to make it to the majors in the low minors that a guy might have 80 walks in the minors, and then if he gets to the majors, he may only walk 20 times a year. It's just more of a product of the pitchers. So it's just really, you have to really know what you're talking about. You can't apply something to everybody.
And case in point, you know, a guy that just got traded, J.P. Crawford, you know, at one point he was the #1 prospect in baseball.
Yeah. I always thought he was kind of overrated.
Well, that's the point. I saw J.P. Crawford in the minors, and I was telling you know I live in Jersey, but I'm close to the Philadelphia area. And everybody around here is a Phillies fan, and I was telling people like J.P. Crawford not only is not the #1 prospect in baseball, I said he will not even be a starting caliber shortstop. He's just not that. Like J.P. Crawford is a utility guy, like somebody that could come in, you know, give you a guy a day. Like he's not going to hit for a big average. He's got like no pop, and the glove is, it's not great. Yeah, but for some reason he was always the top ranked guy. And I know we didn't get to it today. We'll get to it next week. We're gonna dive. You know, Nick already said it. Me and Nick are always deep in the prospects. You know, we're gonna do a lot of diving next week. We're gonna talk about Vladdy Jr. We're gonna talk about Tatis Jr. You know, we got. The people that me and Nick grew up on, the kids are coming now. We got Vladdy Jr., we got Tatis Jr., we got Bichette Jr. They're all coming.
Yeah, I got to actually watch them all at the All-Star game in the Home Run Derby last year, so I got up close and personally involved. So it'll be about that.
We'll talk about them. We talked about Kyle Tucker earlier. We'll talk about some other guys, that prospects you may not know that could be on the move in potential trades, stuff like that. Also, next week, me and Nick, we're getting close to the Hall of Fame announcement. You brought up Doc Holliday and how you think he might get in this year. We're going to go into that, and also, if you watch MLB Network, you probably saw the thing with Mad Dog Russo and Tony La Russa, and how Mad Dog lit into La Russa about Harold Baines. I'm going to do that next week. I'm going to do that. I will be Mad Dog on Harold Baines next week, because I've always had a problem with the Hall of Fame as a whole. Yeah. This one set me off. So if you want to see somebody go on a big rant, watch the show next week, because that'll be me.
I'll just be there laughing and agreeing with you, because it takes a lot for me to agree with Mad Dog, because I don't really like his show. But yeah, I agree with him sometimes, and this is definitely a case where I agree with him.
So Harold Baines just took that bar and brought it down to the short people level.
Yeah. And I think Jack Morris did in a way too. I agree with Trammell in there, but yeah, the last few years have definitely been interesting. But yeah, thanks guys for joining us. I'll let Dan sign us off.
Yeah, I was gonna say all that and more next week. This was the inaugural episode. We'll be back on a weekly basis. We don't have a set day yet. We might stick with Tuesdays. I don't know. You know, next Tuesday, you know, you got Christmas, so that'll be a little difficult. But we'll be back in some form. Stay tuned. I know I'll keep everybody informed on Twitter. I'm sure Nick will do the same. For Nick, I'm Dan. Again, this is the Pitch Out, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next week.